So far we've looked at just what community church life was like in the lead up for our first Sunday meeting. But what was life like after that? As we move to the community centre, start our daily rhythms, here's Deb to tell us more.
Looking back, it is a long time, so sometimes it's hard to remember everything. But what I do remember first off is how we started in that school hall in the Outdoor Pursuit Centre. And every week we would have to clear it up. Sometimes there'd be broken glass and bits and pieces, but we would just sweep it up, put the chairs out and get ready for church. We were very fortunate to have a number of musicians. So we had a worship band, we had a small preaching team. I was in the worship band. I would be playing the piano, unsurprisingly. In those days we had a small, we would have many people, so basically I would be playing the piano and then once a month I would also be preaching. So it was common for us to do both. David would preach and play the bass. But it was great to be able to use your gifts in that way at the start of community church. And we got on with the business of having church, being church each week. I can remember our first Mother's Day where we gave out daffodils to the mums. I've got a photo somewhere of me holding a bunch of daffodils that my daughter had just given me. Then there was the first Easter. I do recall the children, all the small children, being given the flag to wave, and they came in while we were singing to an Easter song. And we had our first communion on that Sunday as well, which was memorable. In the early days of church, we used our homes a lot. We definitely started life groups in that first year, and that was the first way in which we were using our homes. But we saw anyone who had a home which was a bit bigger and could accommodate as many people as possible, we would use them for social events and for prayer, for anything really. We were just open to using whatever God had given us. We did hold as many social events as we could because we really saw it as a way to engage with friends, family, neighbours, people who weren't associated with church. We had a couple who invited a number of us around, as many as they could get in to their home, and they didn't have a particularly large garden, but it was firework night, bonfire night. Andy and Katie, if they're watching this, I remember this very clearly, Andy and Katie. They bought this big box, which is fireworks, and you just lit one taper and then gradually all the fireworks would go off one after the other. That was the design. And so they put it at the back of the garden. Unfortunately, the garden was not quite long enough, but nevertheless, those fireworks were lit. And I don't know whether we laughed or screamed as much, but it didn't go quite according to plan. And everyone just scattered as the fireworks were going off randomly and not going in the right direction. It was quite dangerous, but thankfully nobody got hurt. And it was very memorable. We never forgot that again. In the early days, obviously, of community church, we didn't have our own building, we didn't have the facilities to baptise people. And we found ourselves with people who wanted to be baptised because they'd become Christians. So we asked around, and the Baptist Church in Grays were very happy to let us use their building on a Sunday afternoon. And so the very first new Christians in community church were baptised there, in their baptismal pool. We would never just have church without evangelism. And from the start, it was about helping people to find Jesus, who is the only way to God. And we never let go of that. And we've always had it in our vision statement. It's always been about taking the gospel to those who don't know him. We decided to run the Alpha course. And so I think this was 1999, so we were nearly 3 years in. And we felt the best thing to do would be to run the Alpha course for the whole of the church that existed then. How many people? Would have been well over 100 at that point. But we decided before we ran it for other people, we would run it for ourselves, which we did. And it was very successful. And thereafter, every year we ran an Alpha course. In fact, I think we probably ran 2 a year. And it was very well received. And we had new Christians come out of the Alpha course. And I can honestly say that I think there may have been a few years where we didn't have run an Alpha course, but mainly ever since 1999 we have run Alpha. as a church.
As Dad mentioned, community church wasn't just inward focused, it was outward. We wanted to see people come to know Jesus. Here's Tom sharing his testimony.
Well, I used to play football with some of the chaps that went to the Salvation Army, and they said they was going to start a church at the old Outdoor Pursuit Centre. I didn't go to church then, Chris used to go, and she said, oh, I'll give it a try.
I was studying at the time, doing my degree, and I remember after we'd been there, I'd been a Christian about 17 years, and obviously I was praying for Tom all the time. And I was studying in the back garden, and I suddenly heard the Lord say to me, you need to join this church, help build it, and your husband will become a Christian in 3 months. And he did, to the day, in 3 months.
I used to go along, because I still play football with the boys, I used to go along just to put the chairs out in the morning and then go back and put them away again. And then I started to come. Something was on at the Civic Hall. So I forget the name of the man, but there was something, he was talking about creation or evolution. What he said, there is no other way you could say that creation wasn't a thing. So instead of just putting the chairs out, I started to come to the church.
It spoke to you, didn't it?
And the dates, I think it was 97, I got myself baptised. It just went on from there.
Yeah.
And then we've been ever since.
I would say the early days of community church were just so exciting. It was a new beginning for everybody, a new start, and we were excited to see where God was going to take us. Looking back, yes, of course we made some mistakes, we were feeling our way along, but God was with us. If we look around us now, He has brought us to this place. I look back and think we were fairly young and to start a church, really. But God had a plan and He prepared us. And what we have today is all He's doing. And I give Him all the glory.